Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is CoraLynn Trewet. She's a senior medical science liaison, and we talk about grit, surviving the rocky road of pharma. It's an awesome, awesome conversation. You guys are going to love this. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn and mark your calendars. Check out MSL Talk Live, which is a live panel discussion, just like this podcast, but it's a group and it's once a month, typically the first or second Tuesday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn so you can see those announcements, announcing the exact date and titles. And thank you guys for all of your support of this podcast. Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravella, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. All right, CoraLynn, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm well, Tom. Thanks for having me. You've been trying to get me for a while, so I finally gave in.
Guys, like literally to the point of harassment or harassment, however you say it. I'm like, what's a guy got to do?
A lot.
We're here, and there's a lot of history that we're going to talk about. So before we get into it, CoraLynn, why don't you do a quick introduction? Just tell everybody who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Sure. CoraLynn Trewet. I live in Ankeny, Iowa, just a suburb of Des Moines. I'm both a Cyclone and a Hawkeye since it's college football season. Everyone always asks that, right? Iowa girl, grew up in Iowa, went to pharmacy school at Drake University, did a 2-year residency at the University of Kansas as a Rock Chalk Jayhawk, and came back to Iowa and was on faculty at the University of Iowa for about 10 years before I came to industry.
And you guys are in for a treat because CoraLynn is awesome, one of my favorite people on this whole planet. And we do have this crazy history together. So we're gonna start with that because I want you. So the title of this episode is Grit: Surviving the Rocky Road of Pharma. So you have to tell everybody where the Rocky Road thing came from.
Oh, well, that probably is a little bit of our story, but the first time Tom placed me or helped me with a placement, I was trying to decide between two different opportunities, and one was pretty what I termed vanilla, or he said maybe vanilla. I'm not even sure who said, and I said, but I really love vanilla ice cream. I add whatever you want to it, and you said you got a Rocky Road ice cream is way better than vanilla ice cream. So it was kind of our terminology that we used, and it ended up that role. It was incredibly a rocky road, but it was kind of delicious ice cream if you're going to use the analogy, like, all the way. But so we talk a lot about the rocky road that I've had over the last 4 years. For
literally perfect. It's funny because that was just an ongoing joke between the two of us, was the whole Rocky Road thing. She would sign her name Rocky Road, like for years. And it really has been a rocky road for poor CoraLynn. So we're going to get into that. But so let's go back, though. I know a lot of folks that listen to this podcast are interested in hearing about, how did you get into industry? How did you land your first MSL role? How did you just get into this whole thing?
Yeah, I have a really biased answer to this question when people ask me how the road to becoming an MSL. And my opinion is become really good at what you are first. So for me, that was being a pharmacist. Be a really good clinical pharmacist first, be a really good researcher, be a really good physician, whatever that might be really good at that first. I navigated that well. I met with a lot of drug sales professionals or drug reps. I met with MSLs. I was a speaker for a couple different companies. So I did a lot of networking in my own world of pharmacy, but also in the world of pharma without even being in pharma. So I feel like that was really important to me landing my first job. I tell the story about my first job because it was really by accident that I applied. I've been interested in industry, wasn't looking to leave. My daughter was going to be a kindergartner. She's now in 9th grade. She was going to be a kindergartner. And I thought, I can't be on rounds every morning at 7:30 a.m. and see patients till 5 o'clock in the afternoon and ever see my kids go to school or come home from school. So I wanted a little bit more flexibility. And I was looking at the application that someone had sent to me from Sanofi. They were expanding their team. And I pressed next thinking I would back out of it, just like curious of what was the possibilities, or what they were looking for, what you had to enter in the application. And it said, "Thank you for your application." I called my husband. I said, "Oh my gosh, I think I just applied for a job. I don't know what
No
happened."
way.
And the rest is a little bit of history. I think, one of my messages, as we talk about message on this podcast, is like, go with your gut and like, don't have any regrets. And so everything does pretty happen for a reason. You just have to trust that it happens for a reason. So I took it from there.
That's awesome. I never heard that story. That's such a
Yeah.
good way to start off. And I think that's just awesome advice too. If you just have this gut feeling, and if there's something inside of you that's telling you to do something, you should probably listen to it. Just do it. There's so many conversations I have, especially now, because there's so much uncertainty. Everybody's second guessing themselves.
Oh yeah.
I think that there's such power in action and taking a leap of faith and having, trusting in yourself and your capabilities and seeing where your road's going to kind of take you. So you transition into industry, you get your job as an MSL, and then take us from there, because this is going to this is going to be a career transition story. So I want to kind of have you walk us through this path.
Yeah, like I said, I've been in industry now for 10 years. And, I think the 10 years previous to me joining industry, I joined industry in 2013. But the 10 years previous to that, there were really big changes. The Sunshine Act, some really large changes in pharma. And then I think the changes, from 2013 to 2023 have really been more of an evolution of healthcare, more than the evolution of pharma, and like the kinds of drugs that are promoted, how sales professionals work, how medical works. I think that has really, specialty drugs, the price of the drugs that medical affairs is handling. I think that's really been an evolution. So I went to Sanofi in 2013. Sanofi makes, it was at the time one of the, the biggest drugs in the world, with Lantus insulin. A very, billion-dollar drug. But the evolution of diabetes really changed. People don't use insulin like they used to. GLP-1s and SGLT2s, really large classes, have totally changed the landscape of diabetes. And I think a lot of the landscapes of healthcare of different disease states have vastly changed in the last 10 years, mostly for the better. Mm-hmm. So I always say that I went to Sanofi and I took my clinical area of expertise and I learned how to be an MSL. I learned and navigated how to build thought leader relationships, how to work with cross-functional partners, how to lead projects and teams. And that was the best thing about Sanofi. I was able to really just it was like going to college almost, really learn how to be a really good MSL.
And then what made you leave? How did you transition out of there?
Yeah. So the timeline in December of 2019, very unexpectedly, a third of our team from medical was cut. At that moment, I can remember I was sitting in a parking lot right by the plaza in Kansas City, right by St. Luke's Hospital, and all this was happening. I was like texting my boss, like, "Am I safe? Are you safe? Who's safe? What's going on?" These moments are really crazy, and they're very much etched in my memory as well. I had to go to a thought leader appointment, not knowing if I still had my job. It was really, really crazy. And I was safe, actually. I was safe in December. And in January, we're all in Dallas. We have these new plans, a new team, different size team, new geographies, new bosses, or changed bosses for most of us. And on February 1st, I had an appointment put on my calendar, and they said, "We calculated wrong. We need one more person, and it's you. And it has nothing to do, it's just your geography. Or it's just the way it's all shaking out." So everyone else had already had this head start. Everybody else had, was already without the company any longer. And then it was me. And it was February 1st of 2020. So, kind of picture, we had no idea what would happen the next several months and weeks after that February 1st of 2020. But that's where I had my first time that I was displaced. So.
Yeah. So now you get hit with that. And I mean, think about that. You're cruising along. You think you're safe. Everything's great. You get through the holidays. You're like, okay, all excited for a new year. And then you get hit with that news. Not to mention right after that's COVID, which obviously throws a wrinkle into everything. So you obviously were going through a crazy time. And that's where I come in right about that time.
Yep.
So
So
we
you were
meet,
building the team at Biogen. Yeah.
we're building a team of Biogen, and you and I meet, and I'm like, help is on the way. I got you. We're doing this. You're going to crush it. And so what happens next?
Yeah, so my full-time job became finding a full-time job. I remember like sitting here and like really early in the morning, the day after it happened, and my husband's like, "You're gonna have a job by the end of the week." And I said, "I'm not gonna have a job by the end of the week, but I'm gonna try to have an interview," which I did. And it really it takes a lot of work to navigate all of that. And Yeah, I utilized you and your team to really that was really good timing. I also had a couple opportunities that were outside of utilizing recruiters, and so trying to navigate all that in a pretty short time period. I had a pretty good package at Sanofi of time, but you don't really feel like you have time when these things happen, and so you really do feel a little bit of under the gun to try to find things, and then trying to navigate for me with Biogen, and you really helped walk me through this, Tom, but my choice with Biogen, they were building a very unique team. It was a very novel drug in Alzheimer's disease. There hadn't been a drug approved for Alzheimer's disease in more than 20 years. It became a very controversial drug, which we could talk about as well, but became a very contentious and controversial drug. But they had this brand new team, big team with very diverse backgrounds, PhDs, PharmDs, MDs, a very diverse team. And to me, that was appealing. It was very different than what I had experienced at Sanofi. It was a real challenge. And I felt like I said, at Sanofi, I really learned to be a really good MSL. Could I go somewhere when I interviewed with Charlie Cook, and he was amazing as a leader and building culture? I said, Charlie, I don't know anything about tau tangles, but I just know about tangles in my daughter's hair, but I will learn. I'm a really good MSL. I'm really good with cross-functional partners. And he believed in me enough. I think you probably helped a little bit as well to give me a chance. So it was a real challenge for me to try to go something that was really outside of my therapeutic area of expertise. And it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of confidence in my current situation that I can really be, can you be an MSL in something that you're not, is not your area of therapeutic expertise?
There's so much to unpack there. I mean, first off, you took a leap of faith and you jump into this new huge team. A lot of, kind of, a leap of faith, kind of, there's some uncertainty. You're not sure how it's going to play out. You get out of your comfort zone, and it's awesome. I know because, you and I talked about it, and I know that things were really good until they weren't, right? And then there was a lot of controversy behind that drug. And there was so much going on. COVID hit, and Biogen just happened to be at the forefront of the whole COVID thing because it was like the first ever super spreader event happened at Biogen. It was like a meeting, a congress of some sort. And that was like this first super spreader event. So there's like this negative news about Biogen. And then there's all of this backlash over this Alzheimer's drug and the approval, which ultimately led to what? What ultimately happened? Everything just fell apart one day.
Yeah, I mean, I started at Biogen on March 20th, 2020, the day like none of us sent our kids back to school, if anybody knows that time.
Yeah.
And my big learning from Biogen was, I think it was such an unsettling time, just in general of the world. We're going to look back on that of just being such an unsettling time. It was really challenging for me. I had my kids at home. I didn't know what the future looked like. I was starting a new job. It was a really hard therapeutic area I was trying to learn. So that was the beginning of that was really hard. What I learned at Biogen, I have a text group my team, my regional team that never ever met in person. In the 1.5 years I was at Biogen, the only person I met on my regional team was my boss who golfed. And I live on a golf course, so he drove 5 hours to golf on my golf course with me, Rob Rodbeck. He's awesome. And he built this culture of this team that all were there for each other, believed in each other, found a way to make things happen in a virtual environment. And this team still texts each other almost every week. We text each other when something happy happens. We text each other when something sad happens. They were referrals for me in my current situation. And so I really learned about culture. And then I really learned about cross-functional partnerships. The only people I did meet were my people local, right? My local sales professionals and marketing experts. We had some other different people on this team. And so the really strong cross-functional partnerships, we had to really be aligned and figure out and navigate, when we could, if we could get into an office, how we could get into an office, how we were going to see people. So really good things. But as you know, that the whole thing, Biogen had a great culture. We had there's a lot of positives about my experience there, but it was like the Titanic. I always compare it to that because we all knew that we were on this sinking ship, unfortunately, but we're like, but the music is nice and the food is delicious. And they have this wine I love the wine. And so it was like this whole thing where we didn't want to get off this really wonderful experience, but we knew the ultimate end was a sinking ship. So you and several actually other recruiters, this job at BMS kept coming my way back in my therapeutic area of expertise of cardiovascular disease. And so I kind of knew the ship was sinking. So I had to figure out kind of a way and try to be a little proactive and try to anticipate what might be lying ahead with Biogen, and then taking a role at BMS and back in my area of therapeutic expertise in cardiovascular disease.
So let's think about that for a second. You're at Sanofi, everything's going great, and boom, you get hit with this bad news. Go to Biogen, everything's going great, and it's funny because you described it perfectly, because everybody that that you would talk to would say the same thing. It was so great until it wasn't, and even when we knew it was over, no one wanted to believe it. We just wanted to kind of hang in there. It's like that scene in the Titanic where the ship's literally sinking and the band's still playing. And
right. It really was. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's going to be fine. It's going to work out. So, and then it's a little surreal, but you're like, okay, I got to pick myself up. That's where the grit comes in. The grit is just being able to say, I have to be resilient. I got to find something. And then the BMS job comes about, right? And you land the BMS job. Now, is it like one of those things where you get this anxiety over, okay, this happened to me twice? Are you just really cautious when you select another position? Tell me how you feel when now you've been burned twice and you're looking at other jobs. What's your mindset?
Yeah, and I wasn't really burned at Biogen. I mean, I got to choose to leave when I went when I left Biogen. But kind of to your point, I like how you brought up grit, because it's embracing the life experiences, the good and the bad. I feel like that's kind of grit, and it's not really what happens, but how you respond to what happened. I was and kind of fast forwarded in this story, so the listeners might know that I just recently was displaced from BMS. So the end of the story is going to be that, which gives a little bit of context. I was always really concerned about the size of geography I had at BMS, so I was uneasy. I'm really unsure about that. And so I really did a lot of things when I started at BMS. My mindset was, I need to make sure that I prove myself and that I do things beyond being an MSL that bring value to this organization. And really doing my best to bring more than just what I was doing in Iowa and Nebraska, which happened to be my geography. And so kind of entering that way, being able to navigate really quickly to some team lead roles, and really working to really get to know the team and build that network of people and the confidence of others so that they believed in me as I was leading different teams there. But yeah, your mindset can't be, I thought, I felt really good about it. It was I went and supported Eliquis, the #1 drug currently written in the United States for an anticoagulant, and then a real novel drug for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So I guess my message about BMS is, even if it looks on paper to be really safe and secure, it might not be. And I'm full disclosure, still probably pretty bitter about my situation at BMS, but I guess, it doesn't always. When I interviewed at Sanofi, I remember I was leaving the university where it takes an act of God, almost truly, to fire a professor. I was a tenured professor, and I remember the national director laughing at me, and she said, if stability is what you need, this is not where you want to be, or anywhere in pharma. She was like, we can decide tomorrow everyone's gone. And I remember thinking, she doesn't really mean that, but she kind of really did mean that. And so I think that a little bit of that mindset of being able to, especially I'm not a risk averse person as a pharmacist. I think that's your personality. but being able to manage that and being able to be comfortable with the risks that you're going to take for the purpose that you have behind it, the why. I think the why is really important. It really ended up being why I'm still going to continue in a similar role in my next for my next opportunity that I have, because my why is my family, the flexibility, what I can contribute, and so when thinking about that's the reason behind all of it, then it keeps you kind of grounded as you move forward.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and I will say this, guys, and I'm not just making this up, and I'm not just sugarcoating it. CoraLynn has never ever shown. I've never seen her sweat. She hasn't really shown. She never cracks. So, like, think about it. She had to go through the bad news at Sanofi, had to go through the bad news at Biogen, had to go through really unexpected bad news at BMS, like totally unexpected. As a matter of fact, she called me up and she's like, dude, she's like, you're 0 for 2 now. Okay. She goes, I'm going to give you one more chance. She's like, 3 strikes, you're out, buddy. But seriously, every time we would have to regroup, and even going back to the beginning, when I first met you after Sanofi, like you never had an attitude of bitterness or, there was really no negativity that I saw in you. You were like totally like headstrong, ready for the next challenge. I'm going to put it behind me. I'm not going to let it affect me. And I'm going to go make something happen. And you did. Like, you're an interview crusher, like killed it. So I think that the idea of this title of grit and rocky road and everything else that we talked about, it's you. You are the epitome of grit. You're the epitome of somebody that's, been in a bunch of different situations, rode that roller coaster of pharma and have come out. How important is that mindset? How important is it to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back in the game?
Yeah. Like, I looked up a couple of definitions of grit, and I actually have like this, I have this little, and you can't see it because of like the blurriness, but I have a little thing that it's like a saying about grit. I read it every single day. And this like last month, since I was downsized from BMS. And in it says, that you have perseverance in your mind, but you have passion in your heart. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. And it talks about being like a pearl. It came with a pearl necklace, or it can come with a pearl necklace, about how it's like a pearl being full of grit, but also having grace. And so I think the mentality behind it, for me, I cling to your inner, like my thoughts with that are cling to your inner circle. Whether that, my husband, my family, my close friends, my close professional friends, my close personal friends. Don't take it personally, which is really hard. And even if there is a personal component to it, you have to really get from a mindset perspective, not take it personally. That's not going to do you any favors moving down the road as you try to move forward. And let others help. I can tell you in this particular circumstance that as far as my message about navigating this, my network. So I have had 8 interviews in the last month, second round interviews and possible final round interviews if I would have taken them. And almost every single one of those came from a referral or a network, a person who like let the hiring manager know or let the HR business or the acquisition person know. So that was, utilize your people, utilize your network, build a network. Fortunately, I've been now at 3 places, and that network of people that knows people. When you go to a conference, like when I went to the American College of Cardiology conference, I didn't go out for dinner with my peers or my people from my company. I went out for dinner with one person from my company and like people that were at other companies and got to know other people. And so really building that network, because it's such a small world and everybody says that, but that's kind of the mentality of like, let others help you build that network and really, let those people help you find that job.
I mean, that's just amazing advice. We talk about it a lot on this podcast. We talk a lot about networking, but to be able to practice it regularly, because it's easy. When you're at a conference, it's easy to just stay with your friends. That's the easy thing to do. It's like, okay, well, we're all going out. Everybody from XYZ company, because that's what we do, and we're all the same company. But I think there's such a great lesson to be able to know you have an opportunity. You're at a conference, you can meet a bunch of different people, you come out of your comfort zone a little bit, and make new friends and keep in touch with those friends and build your network, because you never know when you're going to need it. You just said that you had 8 interviews in like the past month. That's in a down market. Like, it's a down market right now. That's like unheard of. So obviously you've done something right. You've built up a great network. People really like you. I like you. And one of the things that I know just radiates from you is you have a confidence to you, and you know your worth. I mean, even people listening to this, whether you're watching this or listening to this, you can hear it in CoraLynn's voice. How important is maintaining your confidence and your self-worth through these difficult times?
Oh yeah, thank you. That's a compliment for sure. Yeah, I'm going to go back to something I want to make, like, everybody has competitors in this world too. And I would just kind of mention that, that my competitor, when I was at Sanofi, I had friends at Novo Nordisk that helped me with this exploration that I've been on right now. People that, I used to sit by at conferences, and that all came, they wrote letters to the hiring manager. The person that currently was my competitor at BMS, at J&J, she was like, I bet we can find you something somewhere. We can make this happen in the next day. And those are my colleagues, but they were also my competitors. And so I think that is something, and probably to your point you're just making, Tom, about confidence, being confident enough to have those conversations with people, even though we were competitors, but we're peers. We were both seeing the same thought leaders. We really had the same goals. If you're really doing a good job from a medical perspective, it doesn't matter if I am your competitor. We have the same, therapeutic area and the goals within that area. So I think that it's a real challenge to have this balance of humility, because I have been humbled for sure in the last 4 years, and not have arrogance, but be able to have confidence. And I think that is something that requires authenticity. And so I feel like that's probably the thing that I keep. And that's something that kind of, my last name's Trewet. We say at our house, be true to you is a motto that we have at our house. And it's really about authenticity. And so I think that's one of the ways that you really can exuberate that confidence, is if you stay very true to yourself and very authentic, then that becomes easy. And the reality is that you need to be humble. You can't be arrogant, because there's just too much craziness to let that happen. You can be confident if you stay authentic.
Well, and you're going to get knocked down whether you want to or not. At some point in time, especially in this industry, you're going to get knocked down a peg. Whether you're working in the pharmaceutical industry directly for a company, we get knocked down all the time. We're a vendor working in pharma. We get knocked down all the time. So you really can't get too big for your own britches. Like, you have to stay grounded. You have to stay humble. And I really do think it's so important how you treat others. And you talk about developing relationships, not just with people in your peer group, but with your competitors. That's actually a really interesting, probably ground I don't know if we've covered yet on this podcast, but don't just network within your own circles. Go outside the circle and go to your competitors, get to know them, make friends with them. And because you never know, at some point in time, maybe you can help them, maybe they can help you. It works both ways. But I love that idea. And, when you go through the setback, you're kind of looking for that feel good. You're looking for the feel good moment of getting a win for yourself, or maybe helping others with a win. So I want you to there are a lot of people listening to this right now that probably have gone through a layoff. Either right now they're maybe looking for a job and the sting is still there, or maybe recently they went through it. What would you say to them? Like, what advice do you have for them, or anybody that's on the market right now?
Yeah, I would say my advice is to really make sure that you think of it as just, with your career, think of it as a jungle gym, not a ladder. And that you really have to, I think both Tom and I are people who work out. I'm a runner. You have to really think of it as being a gladiator. Like you have to train for this. You can't just be able to go on a jungle gym and a playground without expecting to fall down. You're going to fall down, but how you get up, if you train well and if you have some endurance. So that's kind of how I approach it. I don't think of things as a ladder. I think of things as very much, 2 steps forward and maybe 3 steps back before you can take another couple steps forward. So, so I think that perspective is really important. We've already talked a lot about networking. That's so key for me. And it's hard. It's such a buzz term to network with people. But I think sometimes people try really hard with that, but like bloom where you're planted, take the organic opportunities, like the conference example I gave, of being able to really just get to know other people in this industry. It's a really small world and people are willing to help and want to help each other. And I just say, be really good at what you're doing, whether that's before industry or once you're in industry. Like people have a respect for each other, internally and externally. Your cross-functional partners have a lot of respect for you when you do a good job. So do your job, do it well, and that's going to benefit you. But always never lose your why. For me, it's my family. I've thought a lot in the last month or so about totally getting out of industry altogether. But it offers me a ton of flexibility for my family. Financially is good for my family. And so always, never lose sight of your why. At the end of the day, what's most important. So always keep that in the forefront, because that's just going to help you feel better about things in general.
I love it. And you mentioned respect. And you know what? I'll tell you, you certainly gained and earned a tremendous amount of respect just from all the outpouring of, people reaching out, helping you, the people that are in your network, getting those eight interviews in a month in a down market. I can tell you right now. So Sarah, you guys know Sarah Snyder on my team. She called me up and she was like, I don't know if you know, but we got to help CoraLynn. CoraLynn called me and we have to help her. So I'm like, I'm on it, Sarah. I already talked to her. I'm on it. She's like, no, we have to help her. We got to find her a job. That's the kind of respect that you want to have from your community and from your peers. So congratulations to you, my friend. Thank you for coming on after all of my, badgering you and harassing you. I appreciate you coming on. And listen, I'm going to end this by saying we're going vanilla moving forward. It's going to be smooth sailing. No more
smooth, vanilla, pick your topping.
That's it.
I don't think so. I'm going to a company that just got acquired. So I don't think I think it's going to probably stay Rocky Road ice cream, but yeah, I'm hoping so.
Well, you're awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. And thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for sharing and all you do to support this podcast. So CoraLynn, you are always welcome to come back. But good luck to you. Next time, we're not talking about grit. We're not talking about layoffs because you're going to stay at this next company for a very long time. So we're going to talk about other stuff.
Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's it for this show. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode in the future. And feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.